What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, a show that brings you professionals from all walks of life, touching on their backstory, their mindset, and how they navigate through adversity and opposition, while providing you practical tips that might help you on your path. I'm your host, two-time Olympian, Olympic bronze medalist, author, and motivational speaker, Akeem Haynes. Now, let's get into the episode. This week on the show, I'm joined by high performance consultant in the fitness industry, a former professional bodybuilder. He's a former sprinter who competed for Canada and someone I used to watch while I was coming up in my younger years in track and field. He won a bronze medal in the 2006 Commonwealth Games, and he was a part of the 2008 Canadian Olympic team. Emanuel Parris stops by the show. I had a great conversation with EJ. That's the name we used to call him back in the day. Most people know him now as Coach Pow or just Emanuel Parris. But we discussed a lot of different things in this episode. We could have spoken for much longer, really. But throughout this episode, you'll realize that Emanuel is a straight shooter. He calls it as it is, calls it like how he sees it, and he speaks his truth and is someone who's always trying to learn and grow in every area of his life. In this episode, we discuss what it was like growing up in a single-parent household. We discuss the impact his sister played in his life from an early age. Talk about his track and field journey, the ups and downs. There are some crazy stories throughout this episode. We talk about how he lost his scholarship to Villanova. We talked about after an incident that led him having a bad back injury, recovering from that injury to getting a scholarship to Southern Illinois University. We talk about how he handles doubt, fear, and insecurities. We talk about how he went from coaching himself to joining an elite track and field group and learning what it means to really be a professional. We talk about the backstory behind why he stepped away from the sport of track and field, which was an interesting story for me because I had heard snippets and pieces from different people, but to hear it from his perspective really opened up a whole bunch of different things that I had questions about that he made clear for me personally. Connecting the dots, so to speak. We talk about the specific questions he asks himself to grow and develop mentally. We talk about why you have to look within to find yourself and not outward to find validation. We talk about how he got stuck and why visualization was the one thing that he didn't have that really, when he's focused on it, helped him move forward and really start to thrive, especially in the recent 16 months. We talk about how he stays encouraged and positive through tough times. We talk coaching, we talk workouts, and we talk recovery, and so much more. But hey, before we go, if you are enjoying the episode, getting something from it, and would like to support the show, there's a couple ways that you could do that. By subscribing to our YouTube channel, which you'll find in the show notes, by following us on your favorite podcast platform, leaving a rating and review of the show, letting us know your thoughts, what you like, what you didn't like, just letting us know your true thoughts and reviews of the show. And of course, by sharing, liking, and commenting. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to leave reviews already. And for those who will, thank you in advance. It really does mean a whole lot and goes and helps the show more than you know. So with all that being said, enjoy this week's episode with Emanuel Parris. So give me three things you're grateful for today, man.
Man, I am grateful for the heartbeat. You know what I mean? That is the essence, the magnetism, all of that good stuff. So big time, I'm grateful for the heartbeat. Without that, I wouldn't be able to get up. I'm grateful for my appendages, my arms and my legs, because with these things I get to interact with the environment the way that I do best. You know what I mean? And to be honest, it sounds meatheadish, but I love going to the gym. I love going to the track, and that's me. I'm a tactile kind of guy. So that is another one. And family, family is another part. So I'd say in the number two, because I'm very tactile, or because I enjoy that sense the most, I want to wrap that up with being able to enjoy nature too. So feet on the ground, hands touching the trees or grabbing food or whatever. So I'm grateful for all those things in a nutshell. But yeah,
Man,
friends, family, support.
man, it's funny, right? Because a lot of people know you as Coach Pow now and whatever name, but I know you as EJ. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
right?
That's true.
And
That's
and
true.
and and honestly, man, for some reason, I always thought that you were from Alberta, right? But
That's
the
okay.
more the more I get into it, it's like that's not where you're from, man. And I really believe in order to understand a person, you gotta go back to the beginning. Caribbean
Hmm.
parents. I'm born in Jamaica. Caribbean parents. You grew up a little bit differently. It's probably a little
Yeah,
strict, obviously. Not so much about sports per se, as much as it's about school. But man, let
yeah,
me ask you this, man. From a young, early adolescent, because you grew up with a sister as well too, what
yeah,
was the dynamics like in your household and at the time of when Toronto was? Because it's different from where it was now to where it was when you were
yeah.
growing up. So walk me through a little bit about those early stages, man. What do you remember most about those years?
Oh man, I remember. Yeah, as you know, as a West Indian, whatever happens at home stays at home.
Hey,
So
for
allow
better
me
or
to just tell
worse.
you the service now. So mom was strict. She was strict. She was loving. And Toronto at the time was like, to me, it was like the center of the universe. Not even like,
Mm.
forget Ottawa. I thought Toronto was the capital of Canada. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
hey, yeah,
That's
yeah,
yeah. It was one of those things. Like you were just like, man, you live in Toronto. You had the best of the best. So I was always grateful for where we were. You know what I mean, and what we had. My mother was a single parent, providing for the two, and I believe she did an amazing job in terms of, putting food on the plate and clothes on our back and all of that good stuff. Spoiled that sometimes, other times not so much, but no complaints on my end. She was very strict, so if ever there was a complaint, it'd be about that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's something we've grown accustomed to. The I'll say the Caribbean family is definitely known for for their harsh hand of
Mhm.
punishment.
They're
So we went through
consistent
that.
across the board.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned something like families not being so into sports. So my mother, she was generous in that sense. She put us in a ton of sports at an early age. First sport was gymnastics. We did taekwondo, tennis. We went to swimming lessons. So we didn't, we were outside of that stereotype. And we even went to riding camp, and we just did a ton of things. But definitely, school took the presses. School took the cake. Scholastics were first, last, and always. By the time I got into track and field, and she noticed that I was taking it very seriously, perhaps a little more serious in school, she came down with
Mm,
the iron fist. So there was a year where I was like not allowed to participate in track and field, which just delayed the inevitable. But I understood I understand why she did what she did, you know.
yeah, man.
But yeah,
There, there's sometimes things people say to us from an early age, right? Like those cliche statements, right? You're like, man, this is stupid. Why are you saying this? But then
yeah,
the older that you get, you're like, okay, that's a little bit true, and your perspective shifts when you live a little bit. But from those early
yeah,
years, man, was there something that like your mom said, a friend said, a coach said that kind of sticks with you to this day? Whenever you're going through something, you're just like, wait a minute, I remember when mom said discipline. Was there something like that for you?
yeah. Honestly, the word right there, just discipline.
Hmm.
Having discipline. My mom, that was something that I heard her, mention on many accounts, many accounts, and it had more to do with scholastics, but still a universal principle or a universal thing.
Yeah.
What else? There are so many. You know what I mean? Like if I were to try and organize them all, I'm one of those guys. Like when I remember, I write it down and then I like
Hmm.
let it go. So I have to refer to
Mm,
my notes to give it back to you. But there are some
yeah.
powerful things. There's some really powerful things. One actually was an analogy, or I could say an analogy somebody used to talk about, to talk about preparing for anything in life, and he related it to cooking.
Yeah.
And was like, in order to prepare your success, for example, he related to success. He was like, you have to find the ingredients. In order to find the ingredients, you have to put yourself in the right places. Sometimes all the
Mm,
ingredients aren't in one place, like in the grocery store. It could be at the
yeah.
supermarket, it could be at the grocery store half a block away or 30 minutes away. And from there, you do your research and you gather all your ingredients. The next thing you got to do is learn how to mix them together properly, right? So timing is of an essence. You know what I mean? Organization of the ingredients, and then following up from that is, how you're going to prepare. Are you going to preheat the oven, or where does it go? Does it grill? You know what I mean? And so you got to know how to cook it for how long, and then after that, you get to enjoy it. But it's that lead up. It's how you're preparing it, which is going to determine how good it tastes, or whether you got to throw it out in the garbage and go to a
Yeah.
restaurant. You know what I mean? So that connected with me more. You know what I mean? When it was that kind of story. So I have a bunch of those, and
Yeah.
those are the things that really ring true to me a little bit. They touch me more.
Man, you talked about, mom saying, look, Doug, you got to get your grades right. Like, you're not even running track
Yeah,
that year. like it's,
yeah. That's exactly what it was.
yeah. And this is something that, like, you kind of learn along the way, man, especially in a single parent household. Like, when I moved from Jamaica, man, I have so much respect for my dad because he was like, man, Akeem can be a million and one things in a different country, but if he stays here, he might be limited. And that was
Yeah,
like back in the 90s. And where I grew up in Jamaica, man, was rough. Saying there was a lot happening. So moved to Canada, and my mom did a great job. We struggled, had a lot of ups. She did a great job.
yeah,
But in doing such a great job, she wasn't always home because she was working other jobs. And so for me, I really believe that there's always the good, but there's always something that we're lacking that we try and gain in another different area at some point. What
yeah.
do you think was lacking for you growing up during your years?
You just described it. At least when it comes to the at home,
Yeah.
because my mom was a single parent and provided for us. I'd say above and beyond many times. There were some tough times, but for the most part, I think we were always pretty good. Because she worked many jobs, so
Yeah.
she wasn't home. We'd see her at I think she would leave for work before we left for school, and like there was an age where we were going to school on our own, and then we'd see her at like 7:30 p.m., 8 p.m. So it was pretty crazy, like
Yeah.
I was like that for like at least like 4 or 5 years kind of thing, 6 years. But we
Man,
understood we understood the grind. We knew what she had to do, and we left it as such. But I think what happened was my older sister, she had to grow up quickly. So I think she kind of missed out on her childhood. So she has that nurturing spirit. I think it was like she had to be like that. But at the same time, I think she missed some of her childhood, and enjoying her early years the way that I think I did selfishly.
yeah,
So,
man. I remember those same experiences, man. Like, I tell my little brother now, I'm just like, bro, like, mom has came to like 70% of your sporting events. She came to two of mine. You know what I'm saying? So she came to two, and that was one football game, and that was like Olympic
yeah.
trials in 2012.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's
Yeah.
these things it's these things you learn a little bit later. Let's talk
Yeah.
about track and field real quick, bro, because people look at you now and they're probably like, man, this guy can't move. And you are
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
right? You were a late bloomer, though, right? You didn't
Yeah.
hit your speed until a little later during high
Yeah.
school. During high school, you
How'd you
kind
know
of
about
learn,
that?
hey,
Yeah, I'm
man,
kidding.
hey, I know some things. But during high school, right, is kind of when you kind of you're the lane opens up in different ways, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe for me, it was track and football, man, and I was pretty focused and dedicated to both, right?
Yeah.
But for you, that wasn't necessarily the case. There was some things that you
Yeah.
had, some growing pains. For
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
man, I didn't really start taking it seriously until I understood, wait a minute, I can get a scholarship here to play football and run track. I didn't care which one, but if I can
Yeah.
double
Yeah.
up, my school is going to be paid for. So for me, man, my mentality was a bit different. I took it more seriously. But that's when I
Yeah.
said there is something here. But for you, when did you kind of say, man, track is on the horizon, right? Was it something you wanted to do, fell into? And
Yeah.
it's important for this, man. Tell me the timelines from when you improved
Yeah.
to the point where you finished high school, because nowadays people see I talk to athletes all the time, right? And they say, man, I want to run 10-7 like right now. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
what's your personal best? They're like, yo, 11.4. I said, yo, great. Let's work towards that. But it's probably not going to happen right now.
Now,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
So walk
yeah.
me through those stages for you, man.
Okay, so sister ran track in high school. She was very fast, and I was compared to her. Right? She let track and field go. I tried to follow in her footsteps.
You try
Things
to let
weren't
it go
going
too?
so well. Yeah,
Okay.
she let it go. I tried to follow in her footsteps
And
as
run
the
track.
fast one. Yeah, and run track. So you stepped into her shadow. First track meet, I run 11:49, and I get
Okay.
blasted. I think I came like second last in my heat at some it was like high school all comers meet. They called it the snowball meet, and I remember I was like a bit disappointed, but at the same time I had no reference for time. Like it was like, okay, I know I came last, but was that
Mm.
time fast, slow, whatever? These guys are just superhumans. And I just showed up to another track meet, and I ran a little bit faster. I think I ran 11:31. I showed up to another track meet, which was a district champs, and I ended up running 11:15 in the heats, and then
Okay.
11:05 in the final.
Okay.
And it was like, all right, okay, there's something there. Show up to the very next weekend, I ran 10:95,
Mm.
and at this point, I'm like, I'm hearing all this stuff talk about scholarships and stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be. Because if it wasn't this, I'm going to the Royal Canadian Military College in Ottawa.
Mm.
That was my original plan. And
Okay.
I wasn't so happy with that. I was just like, hey man, I'm going to be a military kid because I don't know what else I can do. I don't like school. Yeah, I wasn't into school as much. I like gym class and I like fighting.
Yeah.
So at that point it was okay. I think track and field is it. So then I went and looked for a coach. And I'm just kind of speeding through it, but I looked for a coach. And what did they do with me? They encouraged me to run all three events: 100, 200, 400. So,
Why?
I,
Like
yeah, he just,
were they trying to find or did
I think he was just trying to torture me. Those some of those West Indian
Mm.
coaches that you're going to run the 1, the 2, and the
the
4,
and
just
the
so you
four
can
by
know what
eight
it's
if you
like.
need to be?
Yeah. So the first event was the 100 meters, and I win that. I run sub 11 seconds again. And excuse me, no, I didn't win. I came third, and I ran 11:04 after already running 10:9. So I was a
Mm.
bit upset, and my coach says, "Don't worry, you got another chance. You have another event." And I'm like, "Good, good." And he goes, "It's one lap around the track." So I'm here looking at him like, "Dude, you must be crazy. I'm not ready or fit to run that." Not only that, I was in the last heat, so I had to watch everybody else run and watch
Mm.
everybody either vomit or pass out or. So I step in the race, I run, I win, and I run 49. I ran 49.7, 72.
Mm-hmm.
And my coach is like, "You're a 400 meter guy."
Jeez.
So basically, I struggled with my identity. Fast forward to I run OPSA. I performed terribly. I'm in all three events. One of the only guys in all three events. I performed terribly, and I have this identity crisis. Like, what event do I participate in? So I don't know where I'm at right now in the story. It's kind of like I just jammed it all together, but got a scholarship to school in Illinois, Southern Illinois University. They brought me in just because I was running all events. Like I ended up running 48:38,
Mm-hmm.
48:38 in the 400 before high school was done, and I had a 10:85 and a 21:7 in the 200. So they brought
Yeah.
me in. I ran like crap there. I lost my scholarship. I came back to Canada, and I went back to my high school coach, and that's where I had my first real good year. I ran 10:5. Ran 21:21 in the 200.
Oh yeah, he was rolling.
Cut up
Yeah.
the 400. Yeah. And I got a bronze at nationals in the 200. Qualified for world champs in Helsinki because I was fourth in the 100. I said no, I didn't want to go to Helsinki, and I went to World Student Games instead because I was nervous.
Fair enough.
And yeah, cool. Yeah. To this day, sometimes people make fun of me for that. They're like, "What?"
Yo, yeah, but you know what, man? I think part of it too, you got to be honest with yourself about where you are, bro, because I don't think
Mhm.
people understand how much your confidence can be lit up in certain things.
Yeah.
Man, let's go back a bit, bro, because I heard some stories. I don't know if it's true or not. I need you to clarify for me. You had
Yeah.
no, good ones, good ones.
Yeah. Okay. I just told him myself.
So so you went to Southern Illinois first, or no? You went to Southern Illinois, but man, I heard you had a scholarship to Villanova. Was that true?
Yeah. Oh, how'd you hear, bro? Who are you?
Okay, so let's line this up, because when I heard it, I was like, man, because Villanova, Toronto, York, then Southern Illinois, man.
Yeah.
How did you? What happened at Villanova? How did you get to those schools? Because one thing I don't think people understand is like, there's more than one way to get to a specific destination. Because before I got to Alabama, I went to a junior college in Great Bend, Kansas first, right?
Yeah.
But you had what happened to the Barton Community College?
Oh shoot! Man. What do you mean, like, bro? That's not just any community college. That's Barton, man.
Hey, soldiers.
I know about Barton. Yeah, Barton. You guys had rollers.
Man.
Did Tyson Gay go to Barton too?
Tyson Gay, Veronica Campbell, Tabari Henry, Alonzo. The list goes. Put it this way, bro.
You can't say I went to some community college. You went to Barton, bro.
I'm like number 12 on the list at Barton, and I ran 10:18. So that just goes to show that like it's crazy. But man, how did you lose the scholarship? What was it? Grades? Did something happen? And what?
Car accident.
Oh, jeez.
Car accident. Yeah. So I was in a car accident in 2001, and it sucks. Like I was taken away in an ambulance, messed my back up pretty bad. It was like facet irritation, whiplash. So I rehabbed for 6 months. And so that was within that story of me trying to figure out my identity, because I was a 400-meter guy before that, or at least that's what my coach had planned for me. I get in a car accident. I actually tried to hide it and act like I wanted to push back the time that I wanted to show up at school, which is not cool. Could have just been real with them. And somebody told on me. So a coach from York University went to the Armory in New York so I can't remember the name of the meet, but it was a big meet in New York at the Armory. And the coach from Villanova was there, and he was like, "Hey, how's EJ doing?" Talked to this coach who trained at York, and he was like, "Oh, you didn't hear? He was in a car accident."
That's crazy.
I got that message, and it was like, "Hey, heard about what happened. I hope your journey back to 100 is expeditious, and we're gonna pull back our interest, and offer you this 100% scholarship." So that was a huge blow for me. At that point, I can't say I knew what depression was until that point. I was like very, very sad, but I don't sit in sadness. I don't sit and wallow in misery. I just like did everything I could to get back. So I remember I switched coaches, and the intent was for me to get back running the 400. I ran like a 52 flat. My first 400 was like so disgusted with myself. Went 24, 200, 2406, 200, and was like, what am I doing? But I told myself I'm just going to finish the year. And by the end of it, I think I ran like a 2160 something, and I ran like a 1074. And it was the next year where I really picked things up. So I've had those struggles, bro.
Bro, man, you said you don't sit in sadness, don't sit in depression, man.
Yeah, I move.
How does a person get out of that, right? Because even if you're moving consistently, doing this, doing that, doing rehab, blocking the mind, there's a split second throughout the day where you got to be still. And then your mind starts to think, man. So how did you get yourself up to continue? Because, you could have just been said, this happened. Maybe it wasn't in God's will for me. It's cool. It's done.
Yeah.
But to go through rehab and to continue building on it, how did you handle the day-to-day aspect of it?
It was tough, bro. Like mentally, it was tough. But I look at it now, like some people close to me have seen me in my weakest times. Where I break down. You know what I mean? And I have my own way of breaking down. It's not like crying stuff. That would probably be healthier for me. But my breakdowns in the past have been like me putting a folding chair in the wall and this and that.
Yeah,
it's like that doesn't help. But those are the moments where it was like I didn't know what else to do. I just had this silly outburst, but I've always like fought because the people around me, my immediate environment, like my sister and my mom, they're the type you're not getting any pity from them, you know. And I feel like when you're around people who like show that kind of pity, like, oh, sick, I'm sick, I need help, this is that. Nope. If something's going on in my head, I'm like, damn, I can't believe this is happening or whatever. But I don't have no option to sit there and waste time. And yeah, maybe I got an hour or 2 hours to lament or ruminate on all the negative possibilities, but I have no other option but to get up and do something, you know, even if it means being mechanical about it. Like, I don't know what to do, so go do something. You know, I doubting myself, so meet that doubt with courage. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any other option. And I choose that mentality more than ever. You know what I mean? I choose that mentality.
Man,
you know, maybe it chose me,
but courage is probably one of my favorite words, man, because it's the ability to do something that frightens one. You brought your sister up a couple times already, bro.
The best.
When you look at your sister, man, you look at your sister, look at your mom. It's probably similarities between the two, but when you look at your sister, man, what do you see, man?
Honestly, I see my second mom, like my sister, and I feel guilty more often than not because I know the role that she had to play. You know, it's like she had to kind of give up some of her childhood to be my mother. You know what I mean? Like, she really filled the real role of like big sister, like from homework to helping me focus to helping me stay out of trouble. You know what I mean? Like, she's been there in my dark days, kind of thing. And there are times where I'm like, man, I don't know if I've been there enough for her. You know what I mean? To repay that. So someday it will happen. You know? But she was like the one that I tried to model like life after, because she was so like, at the time we were kids, she had this like stoic nature about it. She wasn't overly expressive, like too happy or too angry or anything like that. It was just like in the middle. And I was the live wire, like you know what I mean? The firecracker, you know? But I believe whenever you can be that high, you can also be that low.
100%.
So as I'm getting older, I'm like moving towards that middle ground, and I see the benefit in being that way. You know,
man, I've had to grow up. That story resonates with me a lot because I had to grow up really early in my life, and you miss out on certain things, but like your perspective kind of shifts. And so for me, man, you know, one of my things is, I'm obviously working on it, is I don't get too high and I don't get too low. And it's great, but it's also one of those things where it's like excitement. I don't really get too overly excited for certain things, and I don't really stay too low. Or I can get overly excited and I can, like, my lows are lows when they get there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a double-edged sword if you're not able to grasp it quickly and handle it in certain ways. But man, let me tell you the first memory that I have of you. Right. So now this is like 2006, 2007. And so this is kind of when I kind of started taking track a little bit seriously. So I was about just 10th grade. So I was about 15, 16 years old.
Oh, and no way.
There was a meet in Calgary, Cal-TAF Track Classic. And
okay, wait. This had to have been 2007, possibly 2008, because I didn't get to Edmonton until. Oh, you know what though? It could have been nationals. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, it was one of those ones. But like, I just remember, man, the day, the day was terrible. It was raining. It was terrible. But I remember staying it because I ran the meet. I ran in that meet. And I remember it was Pierre Brown, Brian Barnett, Sam Effa, and a couple. Yes, Neville Wright. So you know what I'm talking about.
I know the meet.
So I remember watching. I'm like, yo, because I wanted to see what everybody else was running. I want to see what the pros and the adults were running, right? And I'm like, these guys are running like, I think Pierre won in like 10-12. I'm like, yo, this is crazy, because it was the first time too that I've actually seen them turn the track around in Canada. And that's why I thought you were from Edmonton. So
Okay, yeah. I
how
remember that meet.
yeah. So tell me your experience about that meet, but then tell me, how did you get to Edmonton? Because this is the part of you that I kind of know
Yeah,
and kind of saw, because I didn't know
yeah,
you were from out east. So how did
yeah.
you get to Edmonton? Because that was probably a lot of decision making in that sense as well too.
Big time, big time, big time. That was another rough time in my life. That at the time it was really tough to be in that situation. But when I look back now, I'm like, brush the shoulder off kind of thing, like small things. But uh,
Yeah.
I was at University of Sherbrooke. That's something I don't know if you knew about me, but
Yeah,
after
so
my
speak
first
French
year in
fluently.
Illinois, yeah, je parle français très bien. But after I was in Illinois, I basically I did an independent learning program through the University of Southern Illinois for 1 year after I left. And then during that year, I ended up running a lot better. I went from like a 10.7 to a 10.43 or 45. And, I think my 200 was the same, 21.2 or 21.18. And things just started to kind of work for me. Sherbrooke picked me up. The University of Sherbrooke, I applied to McGill, Sherbrooke, and Sherbrooke got me in the snap of a finger. So I went
Hmm.
there. And yeah, I did 3 years, 2.5 years of school there. And the Olympic year was coming up. I was coaching myself through that whole time I was in Sherbrooke, by the way,
Really?
which was
Wow.
cool. Yeah, because I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I was
Absolutely.
the guinea pig. I was my own guinea pig there. So I went from running like I got there with like a 698 PB, and I ended up dropping down to what did I run while I was there? 660, 667. Yeah,
Mm.
667. And
That's a that's a big drop, bro.
yeah, so it was good. And I was like, so my first year there, I think I went 684. The next year I went 675. And then I dropped down to that 667. And yeah, 668 and 667. Terrible starts too, but good finish every one of those races. But I was very close to making that Olympic team, but I didn't feel like I was close enough. And I just started looking for coaches. So the option was to go to Ottawa to train with Glenn Roy. Me and Glenn Roy, I don't think, even though he's a trainee, my parents are trainee, we don't really mesh that well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll just say
yeah.
that,
Yeah,
so,
Glenroy's kind of like that. Either you like him or you
yeah,
don't. Either you like him or you
yeah,
don't.
yeah. Like I looked up to Glenn Roy, and then after a while being around him enough, I was kind of like, oh, he's one of the boys, kind of thing. Like just I see the way he interacts with like Anson or Pierre, and there's a couple of times where there's some things that he did that I didn't agree with, and I was just like, I don't ever want to have to be in a position where I have to fight this guy.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I don't
100%.
mean physically fight the guy, but I like him
Yeah.
that much. I don't want to disagree with him. There's some things I don't agree with, but it's like whatever. I'll leave it at that. I could see that there's a potential for that friction to be there.
Absolutely.
So the other option was to go to Quebec. Uh, the young lady that I was dating at the time was our national champion 100 meters. Her coach really wanted me to come there. And I liked him as a person, but just was a bit fearful about the situation, just with the relationship and everything. So I said, F this, and going with my third, or not the third, but one of the three options, which is to move to Edmonton and train with Kevin Tyler, who used to be he was the former Nike rep. And
Yeah.
that's how I
Oh,
knew him.
okay.
I worked at the Nike store, by the way, when I was in high school. The Nike store, the flagship store downtown Toronto. So I used to
Yeah.
see him come in with all the athletes. And I told him one day, I said, I'm going to be running with Rudy Cern or Donovan or whomever because I'm going to be on the national team. And he was just like, okay, kid. It ended up happening, and he ended up being my coach, which is like a crazy story. So that's how I ended up in Edmonton.
Yeah.
I left Sherbrooke, went to Edmonton to train with Kevin Tyler and the rest of the gang.
Yeah, man, I know
So,
KT. I mean, when I went to Phoenix, he was out there as well too. So I saw him
I don't
out
know it.
there.
Yeah,
Um, Edmonton though, but yeah, it's a different style. It's a different style. It's a different. Toronto is one
yeah,
way.
big time.
Edmonton's a little bit different. Now you're leaving the family. It's probably just you out there,
Yeah,
and but the group is fire, bro. Like I heard about this group. I'm like, yo, there's some dogs in this
yeah,
group. There's like
yeah.
you, Christopher Tyler, Mark McCoy. Just the list just goes on and
Okay, no,
on.
it was Adam Kunkel, the 400 hurdler.
That's it. That's it. That, but
Yeah,
he was
he
running.
won Pan Am's. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
well,
beat Felix
four.
Sanchez around like 48-4 or
That
48-24 in the four hurdles and 45 like low in the 400 and
I don't think that
20.5 in the
record.
200.
I don't think that 48 record will be touched anytime soon in Canada. Well,
No, no,
that was a
he's
little bit
moving.
different. But
Yeah,
let me ask you this, man. What was the biggest adjustment for you mentally that helped you physically when you got to this new training group?
it was about business. I didn't look at
Mm.
track as a business back then. I looked at it purely as like, I'd say like what it probably should be had there not been such a thing called corporate sport. I was enjoying track and field as a culture and not making the best decisions when it comes to business. An example, you show up to track meet prepared. You show up to track meet prepared whether it's culture or it's corporate. But there's something a little bit more, there's a little bit more attention to detail when it's corporate. You know, you have to plan for upcoming meets. You have to correspond with other people who are involved in your development. It's not just about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's
Hmm.
compromise when it comes to dealing with the corporate side of things, agents, so on and so forth. So when I started to see how that all of that stuff works, I started making less mistakes. You know, nutrition wasn't just nutrition and I eat whatever. As long as it's healthy, it was now, okay, nutrient timing is important. Getting to bed on time is important. You know, minding who I hang around is important. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? So sharpening up, I'd say like I turned my circle of friends into a square. So basically now I had corners. I just had 4 friends and I'm in the center, that kind of thing. Instead of the circle where I just filled that thing up and I was hanging out with everybody and anybody, you know?
What
So
was some
I
of
learned a
those?
lot about that.
What was those? Some of those training sessions like?
They were good. You know, people used to call us the Super Troopers. I don't know if you ever heard that nickname. That
I
was the
haven't, man.
nickname that all the other athletes gave our group. They're like, "Oh, you guys are the Super Troopers." But the sessions were cool. Like Tyler Christopher was like he was rolling. You know, he was running fast in practice. Adam was very focused. He was also kind of like the comedic relief of the group, and he connected with everybody fairly well. There was Pierre, who was the quiet one. Then there was Carlene. You know, she was like the baby sister of the group. You know, the cute adorable baby sister
Yeah,
who
yeah.
worked hard. By the way, she worked hard. And then we had like Genevieve Thibault for a little bit, and Krisha Bailey. You know, the group was cool. You know, am I forgetting anybody? Prior to the Olympics, Krisha wasn't there. It would have been Tyler, Adam, Carlene, Genevieve, and myself. So it was a very
Yeah.
tight group, a little too tight at some points, you know, and a little too much gossip and stuff.
It's track and field, bro.
Whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We had to
Man.
have a couple meetings, by the way. But that's another story. Yeah.
We'll discuss that off the line. We'll discuss that off the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
Man, I heard another story, bro, and it kind of obviously you're gonna clarify the truth of it or not. But when I heard about it, man, it kind of when unexpected things happen, it
Yeah.
it it never feels good, but it can leave you a bunch of different emotions. Man, I heard
Yeah.
that things were going well, and then Coach Tyler just left. Another opportunity came.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
did you know about it? Did it catch you up? Like,
He called
did
me.
you have any ink? Okay, tell me a little bit about that, man, because that
I'll be
that
raw
kind
with
of
it.
that kind of stopped things for you, right?
Yeah, I'll be very as I always am, or as I believe I am most of the time there. If I'm not telling you the truth, is because I feel like, how about this? I'm either not going to say anything, or I'm going to
Yeah,
tell you exactly how I experienced it. I never really got. I liked Kevin as a coach. I thought he was a smart. He had a smart mind when it came to the metrics, how to adjust things to make people faster and stuff. Particularly in the 400 and maybe 400 hurdles, 100 meters, it's there. I'm a strong critic, but I never really. I wasn't a huge fan of him personally.
hmm
So not a lot of people knew that. Him and I had a couple like run-ins, and later on in life, I like called him and talked to him. You know, when he was in the UK, and I said, "Hey, you know what? There's some situations that I never agreed with back then. as the athlete, but as a coach now, I respect, the way you acted or this and that. And other things I just didn't like, period. Boom, done. And we just have that kind of relationship moving
Yeah, yeah.
forward. That is cool. But um, and how do I just, I'm trying to like put this real. He called me. I was at an Oilers game with my agent. And he was like, hey, I'm calling you. You're the third person I called. I already called Tyler. He was pissed off. I called Adam. He didn't know what to say. Now I'm calling you to let you know that I got a really good offer to work in the UK as the strategic director for UK Athletics, which is pretty much number 2 in a hierarchy. And I was like, you getting paid well? He said, yeah. I go, bro, congratulations. Literally, that's what I said.
Yeah.
He goes, wow, you're the first person to say congratulations. Everybody else felt some type of way about it. And I was like, bro, you're getting paid. You're taking care of your family. Go do your thing, man. Like, I'm proud of you. And I was really like that, regardless of any issues he and I had. I was like, if you're in a position that you could take care of your family better, and the position you're in will exploit your talents, go get it. I'm not hating on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Whether I like you or not, I'll be in the back clapping or whatever.
100%.
Because I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing people progress in life. So I don't
So
like to get used to seeing people in the same position too long. So when I saw him move up, I got happy.
so after that, man, group was done.
Yeah.
Where was track for you at that point?
Well, the group was done. I actually really liked Derek Evely. He was the second in command in the group, and Derek ended up leaving. He hired Derek like months later. I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, and they announced it at nationals. But by then, the group was already disintegrating. I was actually running really fast. To toot my own horn, I was running very fast in practice. I opened up with like the best opener ever. Like I ran like a 10:37 as a season opener, where I usually open up with like 10:6, and then drop
Yeah.
down to 10:2, which is what I did the previous year. So I opened up at 10:38 or 37, and I run a 200, and I hadn't run a 200 in over like 3 years, and I ran a terrible 200, but it was like 21:11, and I died off the bend. I was jogging coming home, so I thought to myself, hey
Yeah.
man, with some fitness, I'm back in the game. I might go up to the 2. But I suffered a couple back injuries. It was the not herniated disc, but facet irritation. And I tried to battle back, and I had a doctor from Team Canada check me out, and they're like, we can give you a medical card so you could maintain your carding, scratch for the rest of the season. But I was like, no, I need to do this. I need to see what I could pull out.
Mm.
And I ran like 10:7 in the heats at nationals, 10:8 in the quarterfinals or semis. Didn't even make it out into the final. And at that point, I was like, my mind was on other things. I had an offer to try. There was a bunch of things on the table. WWE tryout to like NFL, and I just couldn't stay focused. I was scared of everything, but also attracted by everything. And I just made this decision to just chop it. I went straight to bobsled and turned around because I didn't like it, and then got into coaching.
Man, because it's like when I retire from it, man, there are people who step away, and the taste isn't always a good taste. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's not something that you want to talk about. Sometimes when you retire from track, you don't even want to look at a track. You don't even want to talk track. You don't even want to do nothing with track. What was that like for you? Did you how do you feel about the sport today? Like, did you feel like you left on good terms for you, things that you can live with? Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about it now?
I'll tell you this, I like where I am right now. What resonates with me more than sprinting was the fight game. Even though I never fought like in a cage, like I really enjoyed jujitsu. I really enjoyed freestyle wrestling, submission grappling. And that was like one of the first places that I went to after track and field. Matter of fact, I'll confess, I was doing a little bit of it in my last year.
While you were training,
Yeah.
yeah.
I showed up to a track practice and I had band-aids on my knees because I was at a practice where we were it's like you're acting like you're kneeing a downed opponent in side control, like you're kneeing them in their ribs. So we were doing that on a heavy bag, but I kept hitting the canvas, which was pulling the skin off my knees. So I showed up to
Mm.
track practice the next day, and I had no skin on my knees and these huge band-aids. And
Couldn't
coach
even
was
do
like,
blocks.
yeah, he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm good. Another day I show up and like, I think the inside of my lip was busted. The, you know, but
Oh
no, I never
man.
left. I, I was I was sad that I was hurt. That was the one thing. I remember thinking to myself, it would have been better had I gone out on my shield, like running a little bit faster without an injury. Because when I went to bobsled, I was messed up. My back was hurt. I did testing. I couldn't even squat. I could
Mm.
sprint, but I couldn't slow down. I couldn't go for
Yeah.
sled. So that's what pushed me into getting into my post-athletic career and having a job. You know, it's yeah. I wasn't like sad about leaving the sport.
Yeah.
I was kind of excited to see what was next. And
Man,
yeah,
let's talk transition, man. You've lived a whole bunch of different places, worked with a lot of different clients. But let me ask you this, man. Transition sometimes is a little tough, bro, because especially when you're given so much time to it, especially when you're given so much time to anything, there's a grieving process to it, right? And it often takes time because you're trying to, in one sense, shed a skin from something else and walk into another things, even though you may
yeah.
have different options, you still don't know that how it's going to play out or how it's going to work out. What was the toughest year for you, man?
The toughest year after track and field,
Yeah.
I'd say that year, the year that the year I stopped, 2009. That would have been the toughest year because like I transitioned into coaching and I didn't really have an identity there, or at least I didn't feel like I did.
Mm.
Um, Other people, my identity was, oh, I was an Olympian and this and that, but I'm like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
didn't put any skin in this game, so why should people trust me? So it was like, it's imagine showing up to the track, your very first day you showed up to the track, and then fast forward to your last days on the track. The last days on the track, you're an Olympian, you're a medalist, Akeem Haynes. You know what I mean? You've established yourself with all the hard work you've done. So this identity is like that's your confidence. So I walked into the fitness game with none. So it was
Mm.
tough because I felt like I was starting track and field all over again. But you know, I didn't wallow. I quickly like realized, okay, I have some tools. I learned the value of preparation because you don't show up to a track meet unprepared. And I also have a ton of education that has put me in the physical condition that I am in now, and I can share that with people. So I did
Yeah.
that, and I maximized, and quickly things turned around.
Man, when
You
did you
know,
find your footing, man? Because I believe life is about like purpose, right? There's something
hmm
out there that brings us that energizes us, gives us, a feeling of sense of, man, what we're doing is meaningful and purposeful. Obviously,
yeah,
it took you a little bit to get yourself in the footing, man, but when did you know that you were on the right path, on the right stride? Because along everybody's journey, we're always looking for little signs. And little
yeah.
signs, sometimes it's not a loud arrow pointing this way. It's subtle, it's small. When was and what was that sign for you that says, you know what, man, I think I'm on the right track here. Let me see what this can be.
Two actually, first one was uh, I did a documentary with David Suzuki called The Nature of Things. And while I was preparing for that, I was outside sprinting on the track. Mind you, I had a huge layoff. I ended track and field, and this was 2011, like end of 2011. I'm sprinting outside next to this gymnastics facility, and the trainers come out with all of their kids, and the kids are on the track running, and technique just abysmal. And one of the coaches says, "Hey, can you teach our kids how to sprint?" So they ended up hiring me, and they paid me well, and I coached these kids for a year. And the relationship that I created with these kids, who otherwise I would have like ran from because I never liked working with kids. Felt like
Mm-hmm.
babysitting.
Mm-hmm.
I like kids, like get along with them, but I can't be around them too often. That's how I felt at the time. And it was just a crazy relationship. Like seeing these kids, they started feeling like my little brother or sister that I never had, or like
Mm.
my child, that I never had, kind of thing. And just seeing how I impacted their life and how the parents would talk about how they see me, it was like, wow, this is powerful. And then that turned into working with more kids in other sports, and these kids are adults now, right? And they'll call and message me, text me, and be like, that lesson you taught me, in the second year coaching me about, you know, believing that I belong wherever I put myself, or the affirmations you shared with me, or the ones you told me to create for myself. It's like those moments were the ones that told me I was in the right place.
Yeah, yeah, man.
But that would have
During
been like 2011, 2012.
during these times, EJ, I'm a firm believer, man, that there are certain parts in our lives that we ask ourselves questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because throughout every facets of life, we're trying to figure out more than just what we can do physically, but what we're thinking. Like, we're inquisitive minds, inquisitive human
Yeah.
beings. At this time in your life, man, fresh out of track and field, transitioning to a different space, what type of questions were you asking yourself? Like, as a man, what type of questions were you asking yourself?
How am I contributing to society? Is
Mm.
what I'm doing like making a change? Like, because I find it's easy to get. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I have my charger.
Yeah,
Phone
yeah.
is about to die. But it's like you can put stuff out there, but what you're putting out there, how much does it impact, society? What does it do for other people's lives? You know what I mean? And there
Yeah.
was a point where I felt like some of the goals that I had, like I was like, oh, I want to get into Hollywood and I want to do this and I want to be an actor, or I want to be this or that. And it was like, not to knock on those things, but I was like, I can do better than that. I
Mm.
can do better than that. And that's what kind of kept me in check and said, you know what, remember what it is that you're doing. You're out there to inspire. You're out there to teach. You know what I mean? And you're out there to continuously learn,
Yeah.
divulge these experiences and basically create a space that was a void in your life. Like I didn't
Mm.
have any real mentors aside from like my sister, but mentors, like figures that I looked up to and said, hey, I actually want to be kind of like this guy, so
Yeah. Man, we spoke a few months ago, bro, and I hope it's okay if we share this, but I think what we spoke about very briefly, man, really resonated with me because it's honest, it's transparent, and it's something that we've all struggled with from time to time. You said over a year ago, I realized that I struggled with visualization, and I also felt
yeah,
stuck where I was in life.
yeah,
Yo, you're in a you're in a much different place and state now. It seems like. What was going through your head during that time and in your life, man? Like, what were you stuck about? All right, how did you find out that you struggled with visualization, and
visualization. I was looking
how
out.
did you combat that?
I was looking outward too much. Like I was always looking for, when you get inspired,
Yeah,
but then you start relying on the inspiration to come from outside. It's okay. Like I think inspiration can come from other people's actions. And
absolutely.
like, so you're always looking for, or not always, you can look for references, but you also have to like slow down and look within and look how far you've come. You know what I mean? Or consider what is possible. Because that's what you do when you're a kid, right? There are some correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, we may compare ourselves to other kids or to what we see on TV and stuff, but we create a lot inside of our minds, our fake friends or our, what do you call it, imaginary friends, and your toys come to life and do all kinds of crazy things. I stopped using that because I kept looking to the outside to find out what I needed to think,
Hmm.
or how I needed to, the direction that I needed to go to make something of myself, right? It's like you watch someone else and they inspire you, but then you're watching how they do everything. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, but remember that you're unique. And you know what I
It
mean?
might not
You
work the
got,
same way for
yeah,
you. It
don't be
worked for
afraid.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that so much at one point in my life. And I remember being like, yo, who am I? As
Hmm.
weird as that sounds, it's like, who am I? Because to a lot of people, I was like this character. Like I walk in a room and people are like, "Yo, I want to meet this guy," but I started feeling like I'm this generic dude who's looking for stuff to do based on what
Yeah.
other people are doing. You know,
Yeah.
so I remember kind of shutting myself out from not like interactions with people and stuff, but I just tried to cut back on the amount of information I was taking in: TV, books, all and like the good stuff too, the self-help books. I was cutting those things up. And then I just started to like work on imagining and
Yeah.
visualizing and using all my senses. And then you just like, you find power in that. And then you're like, bro, this, this game, you just bust it wide open. You know, when you
Yeah.
remember that when you're a kid, you're a genius and you're supposed to
Mm.
continue being a genius, but you all of a sudden decided that things were going to work a different way because somebody told you to, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, that's good, man. Man,
Yeah.
in the last 12 months, CJ, what's been the biggest thing that you've learned about you?
Biggest thing I learned about me, endless potential. And you know what I mean? Something that
Terminator
like,
voice.
yeah, endless potential. As fast as I was, or not as fast as you, but as fast as I could have been on the track or was on the track, I'm I'm trying to relate it to getting out of my own way. I realize
Mm,
that like
mm.
I can be quick at getting out of my own way. That's like my new power is whatever, like unlocking my potential. Because before I would get in my own way and stay there as if I wasn't a sprinter, I'd be heavy and not move. And I started thinking like, you know what? Anytime I get in my way, I need to just basically react like I did to the gun, get out of it.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Akeem here. If you're thinking to yourself, man, this episode came to a abrupt stop, then you are correct. As the video was being edited, we realized there was about 10 minutes of the audio missing towards the end of the conversation. This hasn't happened before. I'm thinking maybe something happened during the recording process, but I didn't want to hold up the episode because the conversation with Emanuel was rich and insightful. Even with the missing audio, I hope that you were able to get something from this episode. We're going to do a second part to this episode down the road, so you could say this is part one. I also wanted to share that starting on November 5th, Emanuel will be doing a Train With Me program, meaning you'll get to train just like him. And if you've seen Emanuel, the man gets results. His client gets results. He's like a big ball of muscle. You know what I'm saying? So if you're trying to get that summer body ready, I'd consider just checking out the program. Maybe there is something there. Sometimes just the accountability makes a big difference. I believe it's free. I could be wrong, but maybe something to look into if you are trying to make some physical changes and need a little bit of help and support achieving those goals. But again, thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding. I appreciate each of you. Much love.